Tonight's guest speaker is Brooker. She's going to speak on traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture and a new community style of doing it.
Hi everybody, thanks. This is the biggest group I've spoken to since I moved to Thunder Bay. I moved here in April of this year, my husband and I, and we absolutely love it. But I've been an acupuncturist. I'm called an acupuncturist in the States, and that's where I took my training, and that's where I have actually practiced for the last 6 years. So I'm called an acupuncturist there, so I'm still trying to get used to the big long name up here, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. But I am an acupuncturist. And you may know, as of April 1st, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners became a regulated medicine in Ontario. Before that, anyone could practice acupuncture on a human, on a person. Anyone could take a short few weekend courses and practice on a person. But if you wanted to practice on an animal in Ontario, you had to be a vet who had taken some courses before you could stick a needle in an animal. So we kind of caught up to where the animals were, and it's regulated. So now you know if you go to an acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture physician in Ontario, it's someone who's got training and has been trained properly. So that's a good thing. When I first planned to move back to Ontario, I'm from Southern Ontario originally, and I've lived in the States for 13 years, and when I planned to move back to Ontario, I kept checking, and there were no regulations, and I could move back easy. I had more education than was going to be required, and everything was good. And then my husband and I made our plans, and I was 3 weeks after the regulation came in, so it was, I had months and months of them having to scrutinize my education, and it's all very good. It just was very time consuming and a little bit frustrating for me, but it's all good. It's behind me now, and I'm regulated here in Ontario. So when I talk about acupuncture and Chinese medicine, please jump in if you have any questions. If you have any, you're not understanding what I'm saying, or you have any questions about what I'm saying, please jump in at any time. Has anyone had acupuncture?
Just recent.
Very good. Lots of you. Oh, excellent. In Thunder Bay, there are only 5 of us who are licensed to practice it. Now, there were only 4 until myself. Previous to that, there were 11, and then there were 5 of them who were not able to still practice. They didn't have the right education, which was unfortunate. But so now the city really doesn't have a lot of acupuncturists for the population. Where I worked, where I had my practice in Florida, there were only 45,000 people, and there were 18 acupuncturists. So, yeah. So anyway, let me tell you a little bit about acupuncture. It's been around for between 3,000 and 5,000 years. And to me, any medicine that has lasted that long, there's a really good basis for it. And those of you who've had acupuncture, you must know that it works. Where Western medicine has only been around for about 100 at the most. And that is what the standard is now. We're supposed to always go with what Western medicine says we should do. So I really like the fact that it's been around forever. Sometimes it's hard to explain. Sometimes you don't understand why it's working, but it works. That's the whole thing about it that I like, is that you get results. I don't have to be able to explain in detail what it's doing for you. I stick a needle in and what it does, but it works for people. So that's what I really like. Does anyone want to? If you want to, just say what it is you've had acupuncture for. Thank you.
I fell and I was totally paralyzed on the right side. I couldn't even stand. I barely could make it to the washroom.
Wow.
And they said, "Oh, you need some places to go to for training." I said, "Yeah, right. Can't even make it to the washroom." So then we'll send you an acupuncture woman. Here came a little girl, Jackie Long. I don't know whether you heard about her. She was very well known.
Her name, yes.
And we were talking because she came from Singapore, and my husband came from Indonesia. We were talking, and then she said, "Okay, okay, why can't you lay down? I can poke some needles in you, just about the floor. I said, what? I was nursing the rehab, I know what rehab is. So she did, anyhow, 3 times a week, Westmoxie, everything. And after about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I was able to get in a wheelchair with his help, took my chiropractor. Between those two, about 2 months, and I was walking all over the place, and I haven't had any problems.
Excellent. That's a really good story.
I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I like it.
Instead of telling you what I had done, I'll tell you about a miracle I witnessed.
Okay.
In my little stop smoking place, I hosted Dr. Van from Toronto. And a woman came in with black curling skin on her legs. And she had that for at least 3 years and tried every salve and every medication on the market. After the first treatment, the black went to red, and then the red went to pink the next treatment, and the pink went to normal skin color. And it was then I said, gee, maybe Western medicine doesn't have all the answers.
Well, that is more difficult to treat skin-related issues because it's something to do with your digestion, your constitution. So it's amazing that it worked that quickly, but that's good.
He was an older man, and he was in a lineage out of Southeast Asia somewhere. So I guess it's like in his blood
And trained from childhood. Yes,
so.
absolutely. And I know acupuncturists who are directly from China who, their grandmother treated their mother or taught their mother and their, so on and so on. And you can literally sit down, they will take your pulses. Pulses are part of Chinese medicine. I take your pulses as well, but some of these amazing practitioners, they take your pulse, look at your tongue, and tell you what your problem is, instead of you telling them. So I hope one day to get that good at it, but definitely part of, besides a person coming in and telling me what their issue is, and I don't need a Western diagnosis, I just need symptoms and, history and your story of your life and what's going on. But also your pulses are very big in helping me determine what I'm going to do, what needle points I'm going to choose. And also looking at your tongue. That tells me something as well. The pulses, there's 6 of them in each wrist, so a total of 12 that I feel for. And that takes a lot of training because when you feel a pulse, you feel a pulse. But there actually are 12 or 6 in each wrist. There are 12 channels or meridians, as we call them, that travel up and down the body. And you can see from my lady here, and I can pass her around too, little points all over. But there are lines connecting all of these points, and there are 12 of them that all flow together. And they're called meridians, and those are the channels that the invisible energy, or what we call chi, runs through. So when I'm feeling the pulses, I am feeling the different organs that this energy flows through, and it tells me what's going on with you. And also when I look at your tongue, that also tells me what's going on with you. Mostly internally, mostly what's going on with your different organs. So if someone came in and said to me, that they've got some stomach issues, poor digestion, stomach pain when they eat, that kind of thing, chances are if they went to a Western doctor, it'd be some sort of pill that you get, right, for digestion. But instead, I would, and acupuncturists and traditional Chinese medicine practitioners ask a whole lot more questions. Do you have any stress in your life? What type of foods are you eating? Have you had any injury to your abdomen or even to your legs can cause a stomach issue? So many things, we ask so many more questions, which instead of medication, lead us to choose different acupuncture points on these channels to choose. So there are, in the 12 channels, there are different organs that they're associated with, as I said, the stomach, liver, spleen, lung, it's the normal, the traditional organs that you functions in terms of traditional Chinese medicine. And I know in the beginning when I first started treating people, the spleen organ in Chinese medicine, which is not your actual spleen, which try telling someone who's going to go to their Western doctor that, has to do with stress. So if you have any stress in your life, I would treat your spleen channel. And I had a patient of mine go to their Western doctor and say, my acupuncturist, Kim Brooker, told me there's something wrong with my spleen, and that's why I have depression. Oh, the doctor said, do not ever go back to her again. She has no idea what she's talking. Here, take your Zoloft. So she at least, gave it a try and gave acupuncture a try, did not fill her prescription. And, within a couple of weeks, her depression issues were resolved with traditional Chinese medicine practices, which in her case was just acupuncture. And, it's hard for somebody not to listen to their Western doctor. It really, really is. I'll pass this around if you'd like to have a look at all the points. There are over 360 traditional points that we use, but then there are another 100 what we call extra points. So when someone comes in to me, if you go to your pulse, I look at your tongue, I choose typical points that most acupuncturists would use the first time I see you. When you come back, if those ones didn't work, I have hundreds of other points I could choose to use. So just for example, someone comes in with a sore ankle, I don't use the same points on everyone. It depends on you, what's going on with your pulse, your tongue, your history, your stress level, your diet even, as to what points I would use. Anyone have any questions so far? Yes?
Have you had any success working with neurological disorders like grand mal seizures?
I have not treated anyone with grand mal seizures, but I have had neurological patients for sure. And I've actually, in the States, I did have a neurologist refer people to me, which was huge, to have a Western doctor refer to me. That was really tough there. I'm finding it easier here, actually. The doctors are more open, at least the ones I've come in contact with, so I'm really happy about that. But definitely, grand mal seizures can be treated with acupuncture. I just haven't had a patient with that, for sure. I've treated people with Tourette's syndrome, that kind of thing, which is a neurological issue as well. Really, really good success. So. Any other questions? I just don't want to keep going with it if you have questions, yes.
I heard that acupuncture flow of chi through the various meridians has different times of day and it has certain high times and low times like tides.
Exactly. Yes, that's very true. And again, as I was saying with the seasons, it's not a huge way that I treat, but it definitely is another theory of how to treat. There's a clock that we have that 1 a.m. is a certain organ that you would treat, 1 to 2 is an organ, 2 to 3 is an organ. So depending on a person's issue, you treat. For example, someone comes in and says, I wake every morning at 2 a.m. And I have dreams and I can't get back to sleep. Well, you would treat the organ that's associated with 2 a.m. And that's very similar to the theory of the seasons. You treat certain organs at different times. So yes, that's true. And it is like a tide. As I said, it's one of the theories that I don't treat in that way. And I'll tell you a story about something I'm still learning, obviously, even though I've been practicing for 6 years. But I had a patient the other day with Achilles tendon pain. And there are points that I treat for that. I've always treated that I've learned are the way to treat it, up the leg, in the area of pain. And this lady was not getting very good results. She was getting some resolution to her pain, but it would come back within about a week or two. So I thought, okay, there's another theory that I don't use a lot, but it's a theory of opposites. So the opposite side of the body and an opposite end of the body. So the part of your body that is associated with your right ankle is your left wrist. Okay, so it's kind of opposite side of the body, flipped the body. So I treated her left wrist this week, and she emailed me the next day and said, well, that did it. I didn't even touch her right ankle, but it's a different theory, like I said, but there's always options. If something's not working, I can look at a different style and try that. And she said the pain has 100% been gone all week. So I'm just hoping it stays gone. But, you know, it was just something that I didn't normally do, but it's an option. So I go to the option. I do research, I choose different points, and I choose different styles as well to try and get you feeling better. I do want to talk about how my office is a little different. I was in Florida, and where I practice, where I had my clinic, and as I graduated, we were told you charge $75 and up for a treatment. And I came out of school thinking, if I had a problem that required me to go, say, twice a week, at $75 a treatment, I would not be able to go to myself. And many people that I know would not be able to go to me. And in Florida, where I was, there's a huge recession. All kinds of people unemployed, losing their jobs, downsizing, or having their hours cut. So for me to go out and open my doors and ask people to pay me $75 a treatment, it was like 4% of the population could afford that twice a week. And that just didn't make sense to me. And me, coming from Canada, where healthcare is something that we're all allowed to have, I thought, this just doesn't make sense. I need to be able to reach everybody, and especially those who can't afford it, because down there, they don't have a lot of healthcare. So I decided, and I had heard about it in different states, instead of seeing someone on a massage table in a treatment room with the door closed by themselves, and once, for those of you who've had acupuncture, you know when you put needles in, you're left alone for 45 minutes or so for your treatment, and then you're done. Well, what I do is I have a bigger size room, and I have lazy boy recliners in my room, which is the way it's done in China, in easy chairs, reclining chairs. I have multiple people in the room at the same time. And I don't know if you can see this from back, but so my reclining chairs are in the room. I see someone in a private room for a consultation to see what their issue is. Then they go into the treatment room where other people may be sound asleep or relaxing, whether they're asleep or not. Most people are reclined, they don't open their eyes, the lights are low, very nice relaxing music's playing, and they walk to a chair, I put their needles in, and then I leave them, because that's what I would do if I saw you in a treatment room by yourself anyway. But because I can see up to 4 people an hour, because really that's all unless you're a new patient, I of course take more time, but if I've seen you before and you walk in, you tell me how you were since your last appointment, walk into the quiet room, get the needles in, cover you up in a blanket, whatever, works for you, I can move on to the next person. So therefore, you are invited to pay what you can afford for your treatment between $20 and $45 a session. It's a sliding scale. You choose what you can afford so that you can come often enough to get better. Because if I charged you $75 and you can only afford to come in once a month at $75 or once every 2 weeks, you're not going to get better very quickly depending on what your issue is. So this way, people who have sciatica, and I'm telling you, Thunder Bay has a lot of people with sciatica, you need to come in probably twice a week for the first week or two for it to work. So this way people can afford to come in that often, and they get better instead of having to come in as they can afford it, or in some of the clinics in town, they're booking months and months and months in advance. And I know Dr. Deb was in to speak to the group at some point. Dr. Deb, up here. She is an amazing acupuncturist in town, traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. And she's been practicing, I think it's 6 years plus. And we've got to be friends. And she's booking into April. And she's amazing. She truly, really is. But I'm helping her out because my practice is brand new. I just opened in August, so I still have lots of free time. And I'm going to her office on Tuesdays to give her a day off. And then between myself and her and the staff at her office are suggesting people see me so that they can be seen often. Go back and see her, when you can get an appointment. But if you're coming in for shoulder pain or hip pain or stomach problems and you can't see her till April, that's not gonna work. So she's recommending people come to see me until they need in to see her. So it's really nice for me. I'm getting to meet people. I'm, getting people to come to see me. But it's nice for her. She's getting some time off because she was working 6 days a week and booked until April. So it's working for both of us. And I'm getting to meet a lot of nice patients at her office as well. Anyone with questions about what acupuncture can treat or whatever your question is?
Do you have a good set of exercises or anything that you do that accompanies the acupuncture? Like, I know Tai Chi, the exercises are designed to enhance the flow of energy and chi through your body.
Absolutely.
So, when you have a blockage and you unblock it, is there like exercises that you have people
For certain things, yes. There's definitely a set of stretches for sciatic pain. I don't go too far because my training is not too in-depth. For example, that would be more physiotherapy, a lot of it, and I don't want to step beyond my education and have someone do some stretches that are actually going to hurt them. But for certain things, I definitely have exercises and stretches and things like that. Everything is gentle and slow with acupuncture for sure.
Plus, there's another modality of healing, it's like healing hands.
Yes.
And it's very, very similar to the chi energies that
Yes.
you speak of.
Yes, I'm familiar to a degree with it, and I love all of those things that promote flow and energy, reflexology, some massage. I think they all work really well together to have things flow and quantum touch, exactly, yes, body talk. There are all kinds of, I haven't experienced them all, but they all have similar basis. Yes.
Big question. And of course, you're the person to answer it. If you were to do acupuncture from Mother Earth, where would you put the needle?
Oh my goodness! You're not putting me on the spot at all. Wow. It would have to be collectively, I think, in the people that live on the earth.
Good answer.
To help them learn and balance them so they stop what they are doing to her, but I don't know if that's the kind of answer you wanted. I don't think Mother Earth probably, she needs it because she's been hurt, but I think the people that are hurting her. In acupuncture, actually, you go to the root. You go to the source of the problem. You don't just treat the symptoms. So, okay.
Tell you another story, the recliners
Yes,
in your office.
yes.
I own the New West Natural Health Clinic in New Westminster, Vancouver.
Oh,
And not currently, but for a while we had a chelation therapist.
yes.
And we'd have about a dozen chairs, and so it brought back good memories.
I know a few practitioners in the States who work part-time in chelation centers, because when those chairs aren't being used, they use them. And it's the same idea, definitely a group setting where people are reclining. And in China, traditionally, people were treated in chairs. And the interesting thing was, in the past, you would go to your acupuncturist every week and have a treatment every week. It was very affordable, but if you got sick, you didn't have to pay the acupuncturist because his job was to keep you healthy. That's preventative medicine. I don't see very many people that do that.
This is a more serious question. Diagnosis. How many things do you check before before you say, this is it?
Before I give an issue a name, a diagnosis, like a,
Well, not necessarily,
No.
but, you know, you're gonna put the needle somewhere.
okay.
And if a patient comes in, you've had your interview with them. I know from some personal experience that this is the most difficult thing, or does it come instantly, or do you wait till you get 2 or 3 confirmations from the conversation and from your observations?
That's a good question. I think as I've been a practitioner for a number of years, it is coming more quickly to me, but for sure I ask a lot of questions. And when someone comes in with pain, I just don't leave it as pain. I ask a lot more. You know, is it, what's your lifestyle like? What is your diet like? What is your stress level like? You know, that kind of thing, because all of that can be related. But definitely pulse and tongue are my final things that I check before I decide which needles I put in. And then I will choose my prescription of needles that I'm going to use, but that can change weekly. If someone comes in and says it worked for a little while, but you know, in 2 days it came back, whatever the issue is, you know, panic attacks, anxiety, pain, whatever, I can switch it up and choose different points. I like to try for a couple of weeks and stick with my original idea and then change it up. Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, in my opinion,
Okay.
I mean, the whole secret is in diagnosis.
Yes. You have to listen. You have to really, actually, here's a good example. My daughter was coming in for leg pain, varicose veins. And you know, okay, you've got varicose vein pain, but how are the kids? And what did you do last night? And she's, you know, all kinds of questions. I wasn't focusing enough, which I don't do with regular patients, but with my own daughter, I was chatting. And it was 3 sessions before we got down to what really the issue was, because I wasn't paying attention like I should. I wasn't asking the right questions and narrowing it down. So I don't do that with patients. I do chat, but I do focus more on why they're there. And once with my daughter, once the 3 sessions had gone by and she wasn't getting results, I said, okay, seriously, tell me what the issue is. And once we got to the real issue, you know, she was much better in 2 sessions after that. So I think key is listening. And interestingly enough, and sadly enough, I've had patients say, my doctor doesn't even listen to me. The prescription pad is in his hand or her hand. To a doctor, I rarely go, but when I go, I went with 3 issues. Well, I've got this and this and this because I've saved them up, I've lived with them, I don't want to come to a doctor. My doctor said to me, I can only deal with 1 issue at a time. I'll have to make another appointment. So, you know, that's why I don't go to a doctor. But
That's why I don't go, if I can help. Last resort.
I agree with you, but there are some really good doctors in town. I've got to say that. I'm really happy with the doctors I've met, and I am so happy that there are naturopaths in town. There were no naturopaths within hundreds of miles of where I was in Florida, so yeah, it's very bad. No, I'm really happy with that because I can just send them over there if there's something beyond my training, and we have a great relationship, and yeah, I'm very, very happy with that.
Your needles, what are they made of? And
They're-
are there different cut styles, like there's copper needles, silver, gold, whatever?
Very, very good question. Absolutely. Mine. And I found a brand that is really nice, very finely. Is it milled? No, is it milled?
High quality, tensile steel.
Yes, it is. It is very high quality. But the main issue is when they're smoothing it. That I had a brand where you would put it in, it would go in nice and smooth, but when you pulled it out, you could feel it catching on the way out like a fish hook almost. Barbs, exactly. It was not finely machined. Thank you. So that is something you have to look for. But yes, there are definitely gold needles as well for people who have metal sensitivities. And just quality of milling. You have Okay, yes.
Some people have their own. I mean,
try it out, but no, I wouldn't reuse needles. They are supposed to be single-use, disposable. Yeah, if you need gold, I'm sorry.
Well, I know.
It's gonna cost a little bit more, but yeah, I just wouldn't.
I'll go to rust.
No, gold's not going to rust, but I'm not gonna sterilize, no. Legally, in Ontario, no, it has to be single-use.
When you have your multiple people in a room,
Yes.
at a certain point, like shoulder or here or where you have to treat, where's the privacy?
Good question, very, very good question. I have a lot of people ask that. So what happens is if it's an abdomen point, for example, I cover them in a sheet and I just lift to the point where I need to see.
Why not the screen around them for the time being, shove the needles in, cover them up?
I could, but the sheet proves to be effective enough, for sure. But what, interestingly enough, there are a lot of points in the body, the back, points that would be difficult to get at in a chair that I don't need to use because there is another point on what we call the distal areas of the body. So in the arms to the hands, the legs to the feet, the ears have a lot of body points that I don't need to go, hands for sure. So I choose distal points when I'm treating in the chair, so I don't have to get at points that need to be uncovered. So privacy is kept, and I do tell people, if I need to get at your abdomen, are you okay that I will cover you with a sheet and just uncover it to put it in? If you're reclined in a chair and you're staring at the ceiling, you're not going to look at your neighbor's abdomen. So I do have, I tell people if I need to get at a groin area, are you okay that, people go and change and put a sheet on and come in? Otherwise, I just refer to Dr. Deb, where, you've got the room to yourself or to other acupuncturists in town. But I've not ever had an issue that someone's worried about that. I do have people initially come in a little worried. I'm in a group setting. What if people are going to look at me, or, sometimes people are worried that their neighbor's going to snore. Are they going to talk to me? Well, they can. I say, bring your own earplugs, just in case, if that's going to disturb you. If I know someone is a snorer, I have a snoring room.
Oh my God.
And they know they're snorers too. Yeah, if someone knows that they're a snorer, they don't want to disturb you either. So they have the room that they can go into that they can snore to their content. And they don't disturb other people. If, however, someone comes in and they have allergies that day and I don't know that they snore, you may want to have earplugs for that session. I have blankets. I invite people to bring their own blankets if they're more comfortable, their own pillows, but I launder everything, but I do have it, but people can bring whatever they want. I encourage people to wear loose clothing so that I can get at their legs, get at their arms. But let's say I need to get at someone's neck, and they're lying back on their neck. If this is the back of your neck, I wouldn't put a needle in like this and ask you to lie back, obviously. I put needles in on an angle and then lie back. And needles are always flexible and you can lie back on them. I make sure they're put in at an angle that you can lie back in the chair. It's always doable.
I had Carrie Johnson, you know her?
Yes. I know of her, yes. She works at Cedar Grove.
Yeah,
Community
that's where
actor.
I was the last time.
Okay.
Because first I had to go to the greasing clinic and holy moly, what a stairway to first forget it.
Okay.
And then the parking, my feeling was the pits, and I'm not a forgoing person.
Okay.
So then she said, oh, once a week I'm in Port Arthur, so that's
Okay.
where I went for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
That seemed to help.
Very good. Yeah, it does really
The
good.
swelling was reduced and the redness was gone, the inflammation.
Perfect.
I couldn't even walk on my legs, that's so bad it was. She got it fixed.
Good stories. I like positive stories like that.
Well,
Yes.
Well, do you suggest diet when you're talking to the people about, like.
I sure do.
You're
And
looking them over, do you suggest supplementation or diet and stuff like that, the difference?
I do supplementation to a certain degree. Again, that's not traditional Chinese medicine practice, but what I've studied and learned myself, definitely I will chat about supplementation, but more diet. I do talk about that a lot. Diet can be huge in so many things. For example, I had a mid-20s woman come in who was having panic attacks daily. Was getting to the point where she couldn't go to work. And we chatted, and she was petrified of acupuncture needles, but she didn't want to take medication. So we started chatting about her diet, and it turned out she worked in a restaurant, she worked the night shift, she didn't eat at home, she slept in all day, and when she went to work, that's when she ate. So she had pop and iced tea a little bit, and restaurant food. So, and she was just petrified of needles. She was shaking just talking to me. So I said, okay, let's not do any needles at all. How about you go home and drink some water? Because she wasn't drinking water at all. We chatted a little bit about her diet, and her panic attacks went from, 8 a week to 2 a week, and then she was able to handle a little bit of acupuncture, and, so diet's huge for that type of thing. But especially digestive issues, I'm big into gluten-free, huge into gluten-free. Not everyone needs it, of course, but I definitely talk about that. So where it's relevant, I will talk about diet for sure. Yeah. Yes, you had a question.
Why don't the needles stay in once they're put in?
Why don't they stay in?
You would be bleeding too.
I leave my needles in for anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour.
Mine work themselves out.
Oh, okay. Some of them do. Some, especially in the hands, seem to work their way out. And if I know that that's going to happen with someone, it's tendons, that I would say for the most part, there's someone who's moving around in the chair a little bit or maybe on the table. So I'll maybe put them a little deeper on those folks. Some people, they don't fall out at all. Yours fall right out?
Mine fall right out. They work themselves out, and I watch them when they're taking going, they're vibrating like anything, and then all of a sudden it'll just pop up.
A lot of times when you see them moving, they are very close to a blood vessel. So that is your pulse, and you can see the needle actually going with your pulse rate. So in that case, I'd probably move it a little further away from the blood vessel, so it wouldn't have that kind of push from the blood to come out. Yeah, it could be that. Yes.
I've seen on various movies and such, where they put for healing purposes, whatnot, they put these needles in, but they have these herbs burning on the end of the
Yes.
needles.
Moxa, yes.
Yeah.
That is, what it does is puts heat down the needle into the point, and it can serve to make the treatment a little more effective if you are someone with a cold constitution. It's heating the area. I don't do that in my community clinic just because I can't have moxa burning for this person when this person might have an issue with it. But definitely, it can be beneficial for sure. I just try and do other things that make up for not doing it. So yeah, I use extra points, things like that. But yeah, definitely that kind of thing. Cupping. Are people familiar with cupping? Glass cups that you apply heat inside it and then put it on the skin, and it provides a suction that can pull inflammation to the surface and help get rid of it. That's something else I don't do in my clinic. And it's great, but it's not necessary to have a good treatment. It's just because of the community setting. So there are a few things in the community setting that you're not having, but you still get high quality, effective treatments without it. It can be, actually I say if you want that, then if that's part of the treatment that you've had before and feel like it's really been beneficial, then go and have that. But then you can still come back to me for the interim, and that's what Dr. Deb LaPierre and I are doing, is for things like that. They see her and then come come back to me for the regular treatments in between. It's not that you're not getting a good treatment if you don't have it. It's just an extra, a little bit extra. Yes.
You have on occasion come into contact with individuals who are in perfect balance, all the meridians clear and functional.
Maybe after I've been seeing them for a while, they are then getting close to into balance, but I wouldn't say that there are too many people that are 100% in balance, and for sure not when they start seeing me, or maybe they've been seeing another acupuncturist, they're on vacation, they want to stay as close to a balance as they can.
And what would be the diagnosis to determine the level of balance or the energy flow?
They would have perfect pulse and wonderful looking tongue. And not come in with any issues. But the quality of their pulses would be exactly what you would want to see, not too damp, not too wiry, not too deficient. You know, there are all kinds of names for the different types of pulses. So I would expect to see that be almost perfect, and their tongue would be nice and pink, thin, white coat, no teeth marks in it. That would be the
And
tongue.
one more question. The population demographics indicates that we're moving ever into more and more older people. How does that, the diagnosis for a older person versus, it must be, you must have to make some allowances?
I would say that I see differences in the older population. So in terms of diagnosing, it's just I see something different. It would be more in terms of how I treat would be different. And for an aging person that's, say, not in excellent health, I would do shallower needles, less aggressive manipulation of the needle for an older, or even for someone who has a chronic illness, that type of thing.
Bounce back. How much bounce back do you experience in your practice where, you know, they're okay for 3 days and then they bounce back right to where they were at before?
I would say I see that a lot in the beginning of a series of treatments because...
Do you know when to expect it?
No, because everyone is different, for sure, and everyone responds differently to acupuncture, but if someone's coming to me and they've had something for 10 years, and they call me up and say, that treatment was wonderful yesterday, and I feel great, and I will warn them, you know, it may not last. Like, you're going to need a few sessions before it's going to stick. What I like to say is, here's where you want to be at the top of the hill, and we're starting down here, 10 years of whatever your issue is. We have a couple of treatments, and if you stay away for a couple of weeks, you're going to slide back down the hill until we get to the top. So that's why I say a couple of sessions a week for the first week or two, or even 3, till we get you up here. Then once you're close to the top or at the top, that's when I start seeing you less and less, because now your body's taking over and healing itself. It's needed help to get to the top of the hill with acupuncture, with herbs possibly. But once you get to the top, that's when I don't want to keep seeing you every week. That's not necessary anymore. You're starting to be able to heal yourself.
Irregular pulse or heartbeat.
Irregular.
Fast or
In terms of treating it so that it gets to be regular, definitely there are treatments to regulate your heartbeat, strengthen your heart so that it's doing what it should be, which is regular. Definitely, there are heart points. There's a whole heart meridian in your arm that I would concentrate on for sure. Yeah, I do see a lot of people for heart issues. Anyone else have an issue?
There seem to be an increasing number of people who have problems with different foods. Are you having success with, or what's causing that, or?
again, I'm, with the research I have done and with my, the patients I have seen, I say gluten is a big issue, and sugar, gluten and sugar. I recommend people try to deal with that, whether it's changing their diet or, taking things out of their diet, which is changing it. But then you have people that just say, fix me. I'm not going to change my diet. So we can work with digestive points, which are a lot of them in the abdomen and the legs. And depending on what that food intolerance is doing to them. I see people that get migraines, and when you find the root cause, it is due to their diet. It can be, acid reflux. It can be skin issues, eczema. So it just depends on how that food issue is affecting them, how I treat them. And yes, I do see people, if they're taking a little bit of responsibility and changing their diet a little bit, and we deal with the gut issue, I do see results for sure. It's the same as people who come to me to quit smoking. They have to take a little bit of responsibility. I do the treatments for quitting smoking, and then I'll have someone call me and say, I had my treatment and I went right to the store and bought cigarettes. Well, I didn't drive you there. You drove yourself. You have to take a little bit of responsibility. But it's, if they do, and there are people there that come to the point where they're serious. And it could be a food issue, it could be a food addiction, it could be alcohol, drug, whatever it is. If they're ready, they have to be ready, and then acupuncture will be able to help with cravings, detoxing, anxiety, stress, anger that comes with trying to stop something that your cells are telling you they need. Does that make sense?
So are you saying that they can eventually eat the foods again?
That would be like an allergy. And I know that there are treatments for desensitizing allergies. My son actually, that's how I got into acupuncture. He had allergies to foods and environmental allergies. And if you get the deficiency or the problem dealt with, the stomach problems, the fact that it's not digesting the food properly, in some cases you can fix the problem. But if it's something that's ongoing, like gluten, and it's damaging your organs, I don't believe that you can go back to eating gluten. I haven't had that experience anyway. My son was allergic to peanut butter. It wasn't damaging his organs, but it was causing him to have allergies. So when we dealt with his stomach issues, his digestive issues, now he's able to eat peanut butter, but it wasn't causing damage to him like gluten for some people does. Does that answer your question?
I guess I still have more.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I've got about 15 foods I'm not supposed to be eating,
Okay.
which I generally do not eat.
In,
And when I go in for muscle testing the following year, I'm going to get 2 more added.
Is it the foods that you're eating, or is it how the food is grown? Because a lot of the foods are treated with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, you name it. And the stuff that's in the food is causing your reaction rather than the food itself. So often they'll say, you're allergic to apples, but you're not. You're allergic to contamination they're putting in the apples that you're now eating.
Same with corn.
Or genetically modified crops, which are even more contaminated with herbicides.
But Kim will be able to figure that out.
let me put it this way. I would initially start, it would be a long-term thing. Anything digestive-wise is very complicated, and probably I would be seeing you for quite a while. But I would start with your digestion. And then we would look at the individual foods, and absolutely what you're saying about the pesticides and the GMOs, it's so difficult.
Eggs from the farm, that probably are fine. But
Depends.
if you have eggs that come from the grocery store, it may not be the consumer.
It depends on what the farmers.
Growth hormone
itself. I can't remember the year, but it's the 60s or 70s. Wheat started being changed so that it was a good crop. It grew well, it stored well, it made breads and pastries puff up nicer, but nowhere was it tested for nutritional value and what it was doing to us. My own father, who I love dearly, thinks gluten-free is a fad because he actually buys gluten to put in his bread. But as I've tried to say to him, and he's very intelligent, reads all kinds of research, but he had he was lucky enough to eat wheat while it was still good for us for so long. So that's why he's not suffering as much as some people are. Now I know people his age group definitely are, but everyone has a different, what they've eaten their whole life, their constitution, what they're born with, what their digestion is from birth. So everyone is going to be affected by gluten in a different way. But I would say the younger generation is going to be much more affected by gluten than
And also,
the older generation.
it's that fructose.
Fructose. Fruit sugars, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not the normal sugar.
Yes.
The concentrated, sprayed and treated corn, and then they start making their concentrated corn syrup.
Oh, yes.
You cannot hardly find anything where it has that junk
No,
in it.
you pretty much have to make everything yourself.
Yeah.
So where do you find this, this wheat that we're supposed to be eating?
I would love to know where to find it.
Where is it now? What happened?
That's exactly true. I have read that. Yes, Europe still grows the ancient, which is 50 years, just 50 years, the grain that way still. And it's, the tall stuff that we used to see, that a wind could blow over and you'd see the whole field flattened. Well, now, I honestly don't see grain fields, but anyway, what I have read is they've grown it shorter so that they don't have those crop losses. But the shorter wheat, it has the gluten issue with it. So, where do you find it? I don't eat gluten or wheat, so I don't look for it. I don't have that answer for you.
So you don't eat any of the grains, like the wheat or barley or oats, or is that all grains? Is that all gluten?
Well, there are different classes of grains. I don't eat wheat. I eat gluten-free wheat. So any of the wheats or any of the grains that don't have gluten. You can get gluten-free oats, rice, almond flour, quinoa flour, yes.
Top of the line, there's a lot of protein in it.
It's very high protein, yes. Where do you say?
Amaranth.
Amaranth. There's unending numbers of grains that are made into flours. It is an education. Luckily, but my husband has a gluten issue, so for the last few years, one of my daughters has been baking for him or trying to experiment and make gluten-free food for him, and she's about to open a gluten-free bakery in town. So, she's been experimenting and researching for years on which she still puts sugar, but she is not sugar, xylitol and honey and maple syrup. So, it's still not 100% great for you, but where do you get 100% great?
The only thing I eat is honey.
Yeah, I like honey in my as a sweetener.
Any other stuff is hard to.
Good. Yes.
So in your diagnosis, Kim, are you for instance, or
Not with my pulse and tongue diagnosis. It would be more verbal, yes, and asking the right questions.
God, I hope you don't, probiotics. You're gonna destroy some of these big companies.
No, they're not. There's not enough people listen to me for me to destroy it.
Drug companies got way ahead of you.
I the number one thing that people associate with acupuncture, because that's what most people have heard. But, you know, I treat people with a myriad of issues weekly, from, like I say, a lot of anxiety, panic attacks, depression, which a lot of times can be food-related as well, but it doesn't have to be, of course. It can be situational, that your body's just not dealing with it. So I can't change your stressful life, but I can help your body deal with it. As I said, skin issues. I see quite a few people going through cancer therapies. Can't treat cancer, but I can treat all the side effects of cancers. The pain, you know, whatever people go through, there's a whole lot of those that I've had a few people with breast cancer actually that have gone back to their doctor, and their doctor can't believe they're going through radiation and chemo without the typical side effects. What else? Digestive issues, like I said, people who are on, who are taking antacids, things like that, they can get off of them. I was telling you about the person who was addicted to morphine. It was his last option, because his wife was going to leave him, because when you're taking morphine, your personality changes. And she said, "I'm sorry that you have a problem, but you are not the person that I married." So he came to me, and within, I would say it would be 4 weeks, he was not taking. Now this is with his doctor, because you cannot just stop morphine cold turkey. But with his doctor, he was able to step down his medication level and stop taking it. So, you know, acupuncture can do a lot of things that you don't even think about. That PMS, menopause, your headaches, blood pressure, insomnia is huge. If you come in early with shingles, it can help that. I mean, there's just so many things that people don't. It's not your first thought to go see your acupuncturist.
For pregnancy.
I see a lot of people for every stage of pregnancy, trying to get pregnant. When you are pregnant, the morning sickness, a lot of women get joint sciatic issues. And then
Acid.
Oh, definitely stomach issues, yes. And you have to know what you're doing, which is really good that acupuncture is regulated, because there are points that promote labor. And they're very healthy points typically, but if you're pregnant, you don't want to use those points.
So you'd use those at enter?
Exactly, yes. And there are even points to help turn a breech baby. I mean, it's unending what acupuncture can do, so it's good.
I find it remarkable that such a small person has such a big heart. I used to call on almost 100 practitioners on the coast, and I never heard of anybody having a graduated scale and that aggressively promoting it. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I actually would never go back to the other way, where you charge full price, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, I like people to be able to afford to have the treatments, but I would have to work an 8-hour day to see 8 people, because you see one person an hour. I can see 4 people in an hour and help that many more people, but also I work a shorter day. So for me, I'm there, I'm working full steam ahead the whole time I'm in the office, but when I'm done, I'm done. I'm done in 4 or 5 hour shift, and I can go home and enjoy the rest of my day. But also, when I put needles in someone and I have to sit and wait an hour for them to be done, if I was seeing one person, what am I doing for the hour? It takes a few minutes to write up the chart, and then I'm sitting there, okay. So there are many reasons for me to be doing it. You know, I love it. I would never go back the other way. And if you have a look at these pictures a little bit closer, this is actually my new clinic. These are pictures from my old clinic, but you know, these people come in and sit together. They might not know each other, but there's kind of a collective energy that happens where everybody's healing or enjoying the treatment, and you don't know them, you're not talking to them, but it's just a really good energy in the room. But what I also have is people who are afraid of acupuncture. and they can sit in the chairs beside each other. I have a couple that come in, they're in their mid to late 80s, and they come in together once a week, and they say it's their best sleep ever. And I have extra chairs, so I don't have to kick you out the minute your time's up. And I know when I have worked in the other setting where I see one person an hour, I have to kick you out because the other person's there. But here, if you're sound asleep or you're just enjoying your treatment, you can stay. You know, unless you're my last person of the day, and I might kick you out then. But you know, if I can let people, I find that if you are relaxed and sleeping or just very relaxed and kind of zoned out, those people are the ones that have the stronger treatments. You know, if you're needing, I have an appointment, make sure you get me out of the chair in half an hour, their treatments aren't nearly as good. So I like deep relaxation and calmness, but thank you for your comment. Yes.
Do you have any story where you or someone else has helped somebody with their eyesight?
Actually, yes. That's a good question. Not here yet, but in my practice in Florida, I had a lady who she'd been to her Western doctor, she'd been to ophthalmologist, optometrist. No one could figure out why she was losing her eyesight. So this wasn't a common aging issue, where we slowly need glasses. She was having headaches and blurry vision, and she really shouldn't have been driving, but she was. And definitely there are eyesight points. There are several in the hand, quite a few up around your eye, but she was able to go back to her doctor. It took a little while, it was about 3 months, and she went back to her doctor and he couldn't understand why she had a reversal in her loss of sight, or losing her sight. And you know, it sounds amazing that could happen, but there are points for eyesight, so it's not that amazing. It's, you know, obviously in China and over the years, those points have been used for that. So it's definitely, I have, and it's not that amazing, I guess. Yeah, good question. Just go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about shingles, and for some reason I seem to have, a greater worry about them in the last little while. I don't know if I'm hanging around with the wrong people or not. I'm sure, and I'm not exaggerating this, I'm sure that I have encountered at least 20 people in the last month or so. I don't know if it's becoming more epidemic or something, but I don't know, is there an alternative, a natural alternative to the shingle shot? I know I've talked with my doctor about that. He knows I don't like vaccinations of any sort, and I'm just wondering, you had mentioned it very briefly.
I honestly don't know of anything that would stop you from getting shingles unless you're having maybe an immune boosting body balancing treatment, but then of course I can't say that stops someone from getting shingles. But if someone gets shingles and comes to see me quickly, definitely can get resolution of their symptoms quicker and going through far less pain, at least the people I've treated, than people that I know that wait or, go the other route and go and get on very heavy medications. I'm also an aromatherapist, so I use a lot of essential oils as well, and I have a couple of blends for people with shingles and all kinds of other blends, but that specifically, that I've had people be able to not take their Western drugs once they start using the essential oils. Yeah. There are a lot of essential oils that are specifically for nerve pain relief. So, yeah, definitely. I was going to say that I briefly talked about the acupuncture points in the ear. I actually can see people, and because I see so many people in a day, or have the ability to, I do have time to see new patients, yes. And also in my clinic, I do digital infrared breast thermal imaging. I'm not talking about that too much tonight because I'm going to be coming back and talking about it, but just so that you know it's here. If you want any more information, we can talk about it privately or later. But I will be coming back and talking about that. I know that there was a company coming to town about 5 years ago from Toronto, but they stopped because of the cost. I started coming 2.5 years ago because I was doing this in Florida, but if I came here to visit my 2 daughters and my grandchildren, it paid for my visit. And I knew I was moving here, so I started that way. I would go into other practitioners' offices and do that, and I am now the only breast thermal imager north of Sudbury. So that's available in town, and I'll come back and talk about that another time.
What did the treatments cost?
It is $229 plus HST. In Toronto, the company I have my images sent to, they do the readings and create the reports, they tell me I should be charging $250. So I don't. Because my whole thing is try and make it affordable, so I try and cut my costs and make it as affordable as possible.
And somewhat less painful?
No, there's no pain, I don't touch you. I don't touch you. I don't even look at you.
Have you had success with it, that you trained
Yes.
CA?
Yes, actually, I'll briefly talk about that and I'll stop. And it was here in town. I saw a young woman, she was 24 years old, and she had a very high level of risk based on the thermal image pictures that I took. She took that to her doctor who said, I don't know what that means, so I'm not gonna do anything. Well, it was quite a high level of risk, so she kept going back to her doctor. Finally, her mother went with her to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, I'm not doing it. A mammogram starts at age, is it 40 or 50 here? I believe it's 60.
It's getting younger.
Is it getting?
Steadily getting younger, that's the problem.
Well, it is a problem.
And then what I heard,
Yes. Anyway, so this young woman managed in this town to get another MD, which is very difficult, I have found now that I'm here. And even this new doctor said, no, I'm not sending you for a mammogram. I will get laughed out of my profession if I send a 20-something-year-old with no family history. I can't feel a lump. I'm not sending you. So finally they said, please, please, please. Somehow he did send her, where they would only do one breast, and it turned out she had breast cancer. So I won't say that happens every time. High levels of risk, I deal with that differently. I totally talk about nutrition and lifestyle changes, and loving that naturopaths are in town. I can send them hormone testing, that kind of thing. And people with high levels of risk can change it before it turns into
I
cancer.
believe in that a lot more than those other tests. And for the clerks, they hurt like hell.
It sure does. It does. But I won't talk about that too much anymore.
Pass your business card out.
Yes, lots of it. And anyone who books from tonight, I'm going to waive the new patient fee. Like I said, it's $20 to $45 a treatment. But my very first time I see someone, I charge an additional $10 just to cover the cost of my charge, my papers, and everything else. But I will waive that for anyone who books from today. So, are you comfortable taking one and passing it on? Okay.
Thank you very much, Ken. Very informative.
I should have said it because now I'm trying to remember what the letters stand for. National Addiction Detoxification Acupuncture, something like that. But anyway, it is a series of points in the ear. There are 5 points in your ear that are for addiction issues that have been developed back in the 70s, and I was lucky enough to work with a doctor who worked in the court system, and what he would do and what we would do is go in and treat people who were first-time drug offenders. They were given the opportunity to have acupuncture 3 times a week for between 2 and 3 weeks, and not go to prison. That was an option they could choose. And this doctor I worked for had been doing it for several years and kept track of the number of re-offenders. He knew people in the system, so they could tell him. And the people who came for acupuncture had a 60% less rate, smaller rate of re-offending with drugs than those who went to prison, served their time, and got out. And it's simply 5 points in the ear. And you don't treat anything else. You don't need to feel their pulse. You don't need to look at their tongue. These are just calming, relaxation points, dealing with detoxing your cells, dealing with anger. People who have addictions get very angry when they can't have whatever it is they want, and it's not all in their head, it's in their cells. Their cells are telling them they need this. And unfortunately, as most good things do, the funding for that was cut. But it has been all over the states in different court systems, and I believe Kingston had it for a short time. So, and I've treated a lot of people with addictions that have had really good results. So that's kind of just a cool thing. You don't need to be able to tell their pulse and their tongue and everything else, and still can help. And it's kind of like with animals. If you treat, I've had people say, well, it's all in your head, or it's your bedside manner, Kim. You know, that's why people get better. Well, you can't tell a horse or a dog, you know, that they're going to get better if you stick needles in them. My daughter does animal grooming, and she worked in a place where there was a vet office attached, and the vet had an acupuncturist come in for the pets that were very hyper and anxious, and she said, you would watch them put a needle in our shen men, which is the forehead, which is a relaxation point, and put it in the animal. The animal would just relax and let her totally groom it without any fuss. If they didn't do that, the dog had to be sedated. So it works when if an animal doesn't know that needle's supposed to do something, it clearly works.
They use it with thoroughbred racehorses.
Yes, big time. My dog was a rescue, and when we got him, we found out immediately when we took him to the vet that he had heartworm. And I didn't know any alternative to the horrible drugs that they give them. It's 2 shots that kill the heartworm, and it is excruciatingly painful for the poor dog. And then you have to keep them quiet for a month. They can't run around and play because these worms die. And anyway, but these 2 shots he had to get. Here he is, my brand new dog. He doesn't know me very well, and he's all happy and goes and gets his shot, and before we even could drive 20 minutes home, he was whimpering with the pain from this shot that was killing these worms. And I was in acupuncture school, so I was able to give him some acupuncture, even though I wasn't a vet and trained, so I wasn't legally allowed to, but I did. And a lot of acupressure on the balancing points and the pain points, and he would just calm right down. So, it's just, it's very cool. And this poor dog didn't know me yet. We've had for years now, but it's wonderful what acupuncture can do. And again, it still surprises me. I don't quite so often say, really, it worked? But I am still surprised a lot.
Are there also acupuncture points for alcohol?
Yes, and they would be the same points that I was talking about in the ear for smoking. And I actually have a few patients right now that are saying, for the first time ever, they're able to pass up drinking alcohol. So it's really great. It really does work for that kind of thing.
You mentioned the tongue several times. Is there patterns you see on the person's tongue, or?
Definitely. First of all, we look for color. Is it red tongue, a pale pink tongue? That tells you different things. Without going into too much detail, a red tongue indicates heat in the body. Heat, a lot of times, has to do with high blood pressure in people. Sorry? Inflammation, definitely, yes. It can indicate that you're catching a cold, your body's trying to fight a cold, you'll see red. Emotion makes a tongue red. It can also be very pale. That can be a lot of things. It can be age, it can be anemia, thank you, yes. Very many things that I would look at. So color is one thing, shape of the tongue is another. And I do tell people sometimes, because they say, really? I say, well, go home and look at your friends' tongues or your family's tongues and see how yours is quite a bit different than probably what you'll see. the tooth marks. That really indicates a lot of dampness in the body, inflammation probably, but digestive issues. The coating on the tongue, I tell people not to brush their tongue before they come in. So the coating can be thick or thin or non-existent. It can be yellow or white. I've seen brown. You know, it tells me a lot of things. And then there are different areas of the tongue that correspond to different organs in the body as well. So there's a lot to the tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned a couple of times you said damp, and then you said something else about cold or whatever. I've heard there are different types of things like that that correlate with a person.
On the tongue?
Well,
Or
not
just
in
body?
general. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. When I feel the pulse and when I look at the tongue, that tells me, for example, you said damp, so dampness. Dampness a lot of times is a digestive issue that I will treat. Whether they know they have a digestive issue or not, it indicates something going on. Digestive issues can cause depression. You know, digestive issues can cause varicose veins. So if somebody's pulse and tongue indicates dampness, I will treat dampness, and you'll see some of their other issues go away. Diarrhea is a dampness issue. Hemorrhoids can be a dampness issue. So when I see that, whether somebody, interestingly enough, if somebody doesn't tell me they have hemorrhoids, but I feel their pulse and see their tongue that they have dampness, and I treat dampness, they'll come back a couple of weeks later and say, oh, I didn't want to tell you I have hemorrhoids, but they're gone now. You know, I wasn't treating them for hemorrhoids, but because we cleared up their issue, they healed. So, but if somebody tells me they have hemorrhoids, I treat them for that. But, so dampness is an issue that I look at. Dryness is another issue. Heat and cold would be issues.
I was reading a long time ago about some doctors were saying they examine your hands, your fingernails, your cuticles. They're getting their readings largely from your hands. And you're using the tongue mostly.
Yes.
It's just like a different.
It's a different part of the body,
Yeah.
different specialty. There are iridologists who study just the irises of your eye. So, I mean, there are so many different modalities out there that are effective. I don't know them all. I'm trained in one, so I do my thing. But definitely there are a lot of different ancient modalities that are effective for sure.
Yeah, because they were even saying just the way the fingernails did grow and stuff, and different cuticles and it was interesting.
The wounds on the fingernails, I've heard that.
Yep.
Can tell you
And
things
the way the
as well.
nails were rippled would say if you had stress in your life and everything.
Yep. But that's pretty awful because everybody can see that. If we all knew what that meant, we'd know what was going on with somebody.
You have room for patients, new patients.
Yes, because I just